Just a quick show of hands, of those who have children, how many are absolutely singularly devoted to ensuring that you're happier, healthier, and more successful than your children? Okay, turns out you would actually like to pass something on, and you would actually like to, whether you call it legacy, or whether you just want to see your children happier, more successful than you could have ever dreamed of for yourself, and you will attempt to make decisions to achieve that. Sometimes you do well at it, and sometimes you do badly, you know, where you say your kids are your priority, but you're working so much, and you're missing the baseball games, and you're missing the school plays, and something will happen, and you realize, I got to reorganize because I'm playing too finite-minded, it's too much about me, I got to sacrifice a little bit to actually put in for the kids. It's a difficult job, and it waxes and wanes, and it has pride and guilt associated with it, but the point is you understand it. It's the same mentality, which is what an awesome experience to leave behind an organization that will be in better shape than you found it, and 10 or 20 or 30 years after you've left it will have greater impact in the world and the ripples and the people who come through your system, both employees and patients, than you could have ever dreamed of. And you get to sit back in your rocking chair on your front porch at, you know, in your later years and say, I helped do that. So we have a sense of it. Now, the biggest misunderstanding of having an infinite mindset is that it is not the absence of finite goals. They are not mutually exclusive. The infinite game, the infinite mindset, is the context within which those finite goals exist. In other words, the goals you choose are building towards something, right? I'll give you an analogy of how businesses usually think and how this changes it. So here's a metaphor. So you walk out your front door one morning and you see your neighbor packing their car. And you say, "Where are you going?" And they reply, "Vacation." And you go, "Oh, cool, where are you going?" They said, "Vacation." Like, no, I got that. Where are you going? And they look at you and they go, "Vacation." And then you try to get past this ridiculous line of questioning and you say, "Well, how are you going to get there then?" And they say, "Well, I'm going to take 95 and we're going to drive 150 miles a day, due north. That's how we're going to go." That's how most businesses operate, right? What's your vision? Growth. Cool. To what end? Growth. Well, how are you going to get there? And they'll tell you their financial goals and what they want to achieve and how much money they want to make in the year, right? And they're all excited if they drive 200 miles in the day, really depressed that they only get 100 miles in the day, rewarding everybody for driving faster on the freeway. In what direction? And the problem is this is where finite-mindedness overtakes infinite-mindedness, right? That is a finite mindset with amorphous vision, useless vision. Infinite-mindedness is having a very clear sense of cause, of vision, that is so far in the distance that we'll never get there, but it gives us a direction. And absolutely you need to have finite goals. We want to drive this many miles on the freeway every single day. The difference is if the freeway is blocked, you take a side road that's slow, because the road to success is not straight, nor is it easy, but you don't go veering off over here, and you know which opportunities to say yes to and which to say no to. If somebody says, "I've got a plane," you're like, "Oh my God, planes go so fast." The plane's going in that direction, right? And so you turn down the airplane and rather take the bumpy side road because it's going kind of in the right direction. And people accuse you of being unfocused, but actually you're more focused than anybody else. It's just you're focused on the destination, you're agnostic as to the route. But absolutely you have to have goals. And I think the other big mistake that companies make is that they're more obsessed with hitting the goal and ignore how they got to the goal, right? Trend data and how you do things is as, if not more important, than the goal itself. So I went to visit OCS, Officer Candidate School in Quantico, Virginia for the Marine Corps. Any Marines in the audience? Okay, there we go. So you know what I'm talking about. OCS the Marines take choosing their officers very seriously, and amongst many of the selection elements they have something called the LRC, the Leadership Reaction Course. The LRC is basically 20 mini obstacle courses. They're problem-solving courses. Like take take all your men and material across this, what they call a water hazard, we call a pond, with three different planks of wood, blah, 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 right? Once it's timed, once it's not timed, once they assign the leader. No, they're always timed, sorry, it's always timed. Once they assign the leader, once they don't. You run it twice. And I was standing next to the drill instructor as they were running it, and nowhere on that grading sheet does it say if they made it to the other side or not. Nowhere. So I leaned up to the drill instructor, and I'm like, don't you care if they succeed in the mission that you've set to them? And the drill instructor said, no. I care if they're good leaders. I said, well, how do you know if they're good leaders? He says, we judge them by the quality of good leadership. And he went on to explain that the Marines understand that sometimes good leaders suffer mission failure, and sometimes bad leaders enjoy mission success. You can't tell if someone's a good leader or a bad leader if they hit their numbers at the end of the year. You just know that they hit their numbers at the end of the year. But if you look at the qualities that make somebody a leader, they're more likely to succeed more often over time. And there's that infinite mindset again. Over time. And again, trend data matters. And so the analogy that I like to use, and I think I wrote about it, I can't remember, but the analogy I like to use is like, think about health. Like if somebody says, I want to be healthy, okay, there's many things you have to do. You've got to exercise, you've got to eat right, you've got to nurse your personal relationships, you've got to sleep well, there's probably 30 other things. You can't do all of those things right all the time. It's a striving. Right? They wax and wane. It's the same. In business, you got to get leadership, you got to get culture, you got to do marketing, you got to do sales, you got to do finance. You're never going to do it all right all the time. It's a striving. They go like this, right? And it's totally legitimate to have arbitrary goals within that. I want to lose X amount of weight by X date. Totally fine. Just like in business, the annual goals that we set are usually made up. A bunch of people sit in a room and go, I think we should hit this number. And somebody goes, I think we can do better. Okay, this number. Okay, that's the number, right? It's nonsense, and it's usually annual because that's when we pay taxes. No other reason. And we strive towards that goal. Well, like human beings, not like human beings need metrics. Metrics are super important. You can't run a marathon without metrics. It's actually unnerving. Because metrics tell us speed and distance. We need to know how fast and how far. And we stand on the scale in the morning. It's good, it's not good. We have good days, we have bad days. And you hit your goal and you're ecstatic. But here's the problem. You have to keep doing it for the rest of your life. It's not an event. It's a journey. And business is the same. You hit your goal, congratulations. Now you have to keep doing it. And so if all you do is hitting goals, and moving the goalposts each time, over time, it's thrilling when you're new, it's thrilling when you're young. Do that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, it starts to lose its thrill. It starts to lose the joy. And I find that senior people, actually, even high-performing senior people, find more malaise in their careers than junior people. Happiness is hitting the goal. Happiness is fleeting. Joy is something, it's like you love your children every day, you don't like your children every day. Right? Like happiness, you get happiness comes and goes, but you should be able to have joy at work no matter what the conditions are. That's because you feel like you're contributing to something bigger than yourself. What's more interesting about this analogy, about this metaphor, is what happens if you miss your goal? You know what happens? Nothing. In fact, you're way healthier now than you were when you started because you were doing all the right things. You were not just trying to hit the goal, you were building a strong team. John Wooden, Coach K, all of these world-famous coaches, not a single one of them was obsessed with winning. None of them. And yet they're the winningmost coaches in history. They were obsessed with building strong players who cared about the team. And it turns out that they won more often than they lost, like the Marine Corps. And so having an infinite mindset is understanding, it's understanding that there's a practice, not an event, And we treat business like sports, but business is not like sports. Because there's not a beginning, middle, and end. It's more like healthcare. It's just ongoing. It never ends, and you have to keep working at it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But we want to pay attention to how we got somewhere. Because I want to know the values, I want to know the ethics, of an organization. I want to know if they're training people right. I want to know if people are performing in a way that we recognize as high quality leadership. And though you may miss the goal, I guarantee you'll hit the goal in 14 months. You just got the timing wrong. And more importantly, you're more likely to keep hitting your goals year after year after year when you have that mindset.